Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our talk. So you want to be an entrepreneur, journey from idea to commercialization. Maybe let me just put my video on so you get to see a bit of me before I start the presentations. Okay, so this is the first in the series of our talks on So You Want to Be an Entrepreneur. Welcome, everybody. We've got, I think, about 15 people that have joined us. I'm sure we're going to get some more people joining, but we're going to start and maybe just start by way of introducing ourselves. So if we just... Okay, so these talks, this is the second we've held, the second series of talks that we've held has Kurudzira. The first one was about getting your dream job. We had a series of talks on things like your CV or your social media pages and how to do interviews, and that went really well. And then I managed to hook up with Dennis, and then we decided to have this series about entrepreneurship, and it's been really exciting. I think, yeah, we were going to see it, but even for me, just the question, are you an entrepreneur or not, was so difficult to respond to. So I found it really interesting, and I'm hoping you're also going to find it as interesting as this has been for us as we prepared it. Okay, if I can just get my screen share to move. A bit about Kurudzira. So Kurudzira itself is a project. So it's a project of a trust. Tugwi Trust is where it's from. Tugwi Trust started way back working with children in Zimbabwe. We help with school fees, we help with leadership training, and the program Kurudzira started out of a desire to see children or students pursuing their dreams. So we found that a lot of our children lacked role models, or had no idea that they could achieve the stuff they were hoping to achieve. And then Kurudzira was a way, initially was just sharing stories of Zimbabweans doing well all over the world and in Zimbabwe. And later on, we then realized it was also good to maybe then also share with them a platform, initially, I think, to help them come up with ideas for business. But then we also saw, as we were working with the children, that this actually worked not just for the kids at school, but it worked for all of us. So that's when then we expanded Kurudzira to then take on a little more than just working with kids, but also then working with adults as well and helping them achieve their dreams as well. I don't know, Dennis, if you're there, maybe you can just take us through a bit about corporate entrepreneurs.
So briefly, corporate entrepreneurs, a fledgling consulting firm, the focus on for both large and small organizations, and we do this through facilitation, consulting, training, and workshops of this nature. So that's pretty much what we do.
Maybe a bit about yourself. Hi, Dennis.
Are we back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right, I'll say maybe a bit about yourself as well.
Oh yeah, so I've been in corporate as an entrepreneur. Went back into corporate, so I'm currently in corporate. I like to think of myself as a corporate entrepreneur. because I like to add value to the business that I work for by being as creative as I possibly can. My entrepreneurial journey has been somewhat checkered. I've had some phenomenal successes. I've had some monumental failures. But the failures always help us to learn and to improve. I'm a scholar of the subject of entrepreneurship, having recently done my master's in entrepreneurship and new venture creation with Wits Business School. And hopefully I'll be a PhD candidate soon, focusing on business model innovation in corporate entrepreneurship. So that's me in a nutshell.
Right, thanks, Dennis. A bit about myself. I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur, but I don't know. We'll find out if I am or I'm not. But I run a consulting firm, KFM Consultants. We work with the nonprofit sector, and really it's all about, for us, helping the NGOs better manage their resources so that they can work better with the communities that they're working in. I'm also a trustee of Tugwi Trust, which is then also running this project, Kurudzira. Dennis and I go a long way back, days when we were in primary school. So it's really good to get together to do this once again. Okay, we want to know a bit about you as well, the people that are here. So I'm just going to share a poll that you can please complete for us. We basically just want to know, where are you joining us from? That's the first question. The second question is, at what stage are you in your entrepreneurial journey? Question number 3, what kind of entrepreneur do you aspire to be? And then lastly, and you can write this in the chat box, we'd also just like to know, what are you expecting from these sessions that we are holding? All right, about half of us have completed the questions, so we'll just wait for everyone to finish off. Okay, maybe 10 more seconds, and then we'll take a look at the responses that we have. Your expectations, please just write in the chat box. What are you expecting today, over the next 4 or 5 sessions that we're going to have? Okay, I'll just end the poll now, and we'll take a look at the results and see. So most of us are in South Africa. We do want to ask, where are you originally from? Because that might have then, made it a little bit more difficult. But it's good to know where you're based right now. 67% in South Africa, Zimbabwe about 19%. We have someone from Ghana. We have someone in Kenya. But if I think I know this person in Kenya. If it's Collie, he's actually not from Kenya, but he's staying or studying in Kenya. Good to see you, Collie, back. Got someone in Swaziland as well. Yeah, so we've got people from different places. At what stage are you in your entrepreneurial journey? More than half of us are still thinking around the ideas. We're still ideating. 5% of us starting to test our business concept. Some of us are running a side hustle. I think 14% of us and 29% of us are growing. So yes, we have some people that are already budding entrepreneurs or growing entrepreneurs actually. So it'll be good to also get you to share your journey and some of your triumphs and challenges that you faced. What kind of entrepreneur are you, or do you aspire to be? 43% startup entrepreneur, same corporate entrepreneur, and then we've got less social entrepreneurs, 14%. I hope you all knew what those terms mean. Dennis will take us through them as well, and we can just make sure we've got the right definitions in our head when we're completing these questionnaires. So that's fantastic. We're getting to know a little bit about yourselves, and we'll take a look at your aspirations and what you'd like to get throughout the course. So I'm going to stop sharing. Oh no, I think I've one more. Let me see. Just a few rules, I think. Do I have those? So ideally, if I can get the slide to come, I think what we're looking at in terms of our seminars is just to be on silent, to mute yourselves. If you want to speak, to either raise your hand or to put your comments or questions in the chat box. Also, what else? Please ask as many questions as you can, as they come to you. Just ask, just put them in the chat box so you don't forget if it's during a presentation. And comments as well, feedback, please just give us as much feedback as you can. And for those that attend all the 5 sessions we're going to have, there's also an opportunity to then get a little something. We're going to be giving away some free consultation hours for people, whatever stage you're at in your entrepreneurial journey. We'll then work with you for a couple of hours to see how we can help you move from where you are to where you want to be. Okay, so I think that's the housekeeping issues. I'll hand over to Dennis now, who will then start taking us through the more technical side of the workshop. So Dennis, if you can please now take over.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kudzai. I'm going to start sharing my screen. And if you can just confirm for me that my screen is visible.
Yes, we can see it now. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let's get right into it. So entrepreneurship is really a journey, and it's a journey from your brilliant idea that you come up with right through to when you achieve commercial success. So the whole purpose of these workshops is to take you through that journey. And it doesn't matter where you are, if you're still ideating, whether you started up already, you'll find some of the material relevant, and hopefully it can either help accelerate or help you think around how you ideate. So this journey will start today with an introduction to entrepreneurship. Then we'll discuss your business model. We'll talk about how you can craft your value proposition so that you actually create products and services that customers actually want and are willing to pay for. How do you test your concept to make sure that it works? And then also, when you've done all of that, how do you then commercialize and scale up your business? So that's what we're going to be going through over the next couple of days. And what we decided to do with Kudzai is to make this as practical and as interactive as possible. So you'll see in the communication that we're going to have some guest entrepreneurs. We're going to have 6 in total, starting from tomorrow evening. And you will have the chance to interact with them and interrogate how they've gone about their journey. And Also, I don't want people to get the impression that, between myself and Kudzai, we are geniuses. We stand on the shoulders of giants. There's a lot of material that's available for you. For example, for generally all entrepreneurs, we take a lot of learnings from Strategizer, and they have several excellent business books, business model generation being the best. For our startup entrepreneurs, especially when we talk about how you bulletproof your business for success in terms of making sure your opportunity actually works. There's the Lean Startup. We're going to use their methodology when we talk about testing business ideas. And also for the entrepreneur, who's become very important in the world today. We have the Corporate Startup and by Tendai Viki and his colleagues, and his most recent book called Pirates in the Navy, which talks about how to be entrepreneurial in a large organization. So let's get right into it and start talking about entrepreneurship. So here we go. So today we're going to talk about what entrepreneurship is and who the entrepreneur is. We'll clarify the difference between entrepreneurship and small business management, because there is a difference. We'll debunk some myths and stereotypes and perceptions about what entrepreneurs are and what they do. And we'll also talk about how do you actually start identifying opportunities. So what is entrepreneurship? It's basically three things. It's a process, it's a mindset, and it's also a management skill. It's a process of combining resources to produce new goods and services by taking risks. It's also a way of thinking and reasoning, which is based on working around opportunities. There's a leadership aspect that's involved in entrepreneurship, because as a founder, you're the leader and you're going to have to put a team around you. So leadership skills come into that. And it's also a management skill, because you need to have the capacity to innovate, to invest, to develop a market, as well as motivate people. And there is a difference between entrepreneurship and business management, because most entrepreneurial ventures start off very small, but its nature, an entrepreneurial venture's nature is very different from a small business. And I've got a table just below that talks about the three levels of innovation and also the strategic intent. So if we look at a small business, it's usually involved in an undifferentiated market, a market that's already established with products and services. And I often liken a vendor selling tomatoes on the side of the road. That's a small business with no potential to grow. It starts small, it stays small, it dies small. And from a strategic perspective, there's no approach to strategy in terms of competitive advantage or looking at market share or having any form of operational goals. Whereas an entrepreneurial venture is about creating something new that didn't exist before. And we're not talking about the breakthrough innovations that we see in the form of Uber and Tesla and stuff like that. Sometimes you can take something that's been done before and bring it into a context where it never existed before. And here we can give an example of, Strive Masiwa bringing the cell phone or cellular communication into the Zimbabwean market. It existed elsewhere before, but he brought something new into a different context. So that's entrepreneurial in nature. So it doesn't have to be something breakthrough. And also, you look at the growth potential. So a vendor who eventually wants to go into making tomato jam or tomato sauce is on an entrepreneurial journey, because they're not looking to start small, stay small, and die small. And from a strategic perspective, they are deliberately looking at long-term strategic issues about how they grow their business. So really, we could say the major difference is that entrepreneurship is visionary. And so who then is the entrepreneur? And the best way to define an entrepreneur is actually not by looking at their traits as a personality, but focusing on what they actually do. And there's 7 things that an entrepreneur does. They identify new opportunities. They start their own enterprise or enterprises if they're a serial entrepreneur. They manage these businesses. They organize, they marshal and control resources, and they can also sell. They can market a concept or communicate a concept, product, or service effectively. They're able to raise funds, and they also take calculated risks. So that's necessarily who an entrepreneur is. And if we look at types of entrepreneurs, and I know at the beginning we asked what kind of entrepreneur you are or the type that you aspire to be. And a startup entrepreneur is your typical archetype entrepreneur who starts a business from scratch for profit and grows it. So we're talking about your Elon Musks, your Steve Jobs, your Strive Masiwas, your Herman Mashabas, people who actually start from scratch. Then you have a very special breed of entrepreneur who is very dear to my heart, who's the corporate entrepreneur. And that is somebody with an entrepreneurial mindset who actually works within an established organization. And, people will be shocked that some of the greatest innovations that have come our way have actually been developed by people who worked for companies. I would hazard a guess to say that most people in the room today have got a Gmail account. And unknown to a lot of people, Gmail was actually discovered or developed by a guy called Paul Buchheit, who worked for Google. And if you look at the humble Post-it note, was developed by a guy called Walter Fry, who was an employee of 3M. So the corporate entrepreneur has a lot of influence and a lot of, importance in the world of entrepreneurship. And then we have the social entrepreneur, who is somebody who creates value within society, but not necessarily for commercial gain. And the social entrepreneur is probably the hardest working entrepreneur because they create organizations that must get to the point of being sustainable, but may not necessarily make a profit. So hats off to those who, and they're few in their numbers, which shows how difficult their task is. Hats off to those of us in the room who are or aspire to be social entrepreneurs. So is entrepreneurship for you? Now, there are different motivations for becoming an entrepreneurship or pursuing entrepreneurship as a profession. But it's mainly for 2 reasons. The first one is necessity-based entrepreneurship. And this is where you've got no choice. You are driven into starting some kind of business because you need to survive. The second type is an opportunity-driven entrepreneur. And this is a situation where one pursues an opportunity when they have other employment opportunities. And this may start as a side hustle, or it might be somebody realizing that there is such a huge opportunity that they're willing to walk away from their job and actually start up. But regardless of how you start, the mindset, the competence, and the vision of the entrepreneur actually determines how that venture matures. So you may start off as a necessity-based entrepreneur where you had no choice but to start a business. And that business can grow and scale into a global organization. So it's really about starting small and thinking big. And it's all about the mindset. And that is the most important foundation of entrepreneurship. The way an entrepreneur thinks is the source of creativity and the basis for formulating new ideas for products and services. And that ability to be dynamic, flexible, self-regulating is a key indicator of your mindset. So in the next coming days, we're going to send out via email a small self-assessment tool that you can actually take just to see how entrepreneurial your mindset is. And it'll be interesting in later segments to actually see what sort of results you get when you do that self-assessment. one of the things I like doing when I introduce the subject of entrepreneurship is debunking some myths that exist about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship in general. There's the age-old debate about entrepreneurs being born and not made. And, my simple answer to that is that, that gene has yet to be discovered. Entrepreneurship is a skill which can be honed and perfected through learning and practice, right? So don't believe the hype. There's no one who's born an entrepreneur. The second one is that they're the smartest and highest achieving people in the room. That's very far from the truth. A lot of entrepreneurs, and research has shown this, actually have average IQs. Their ability to mobilize resources and think creatively are the things that make them successful, especially them being able to actually put together a team that allows them to grow their venture. The other myth is that entrepreneurs are undisciplined, happy-go-lucky people who, just wake up and do it. Nothing can be further from the truth. Entrepreneurs are actually the most disciplined people you will come across, because most of the time they're either using their own resources, which are very finite, and other times they're using other people's resources and they can't afford to let those people down. So there's a lot of discipline involved in being an entrepreneur. And also going forward, there's the whole thing about entrepreneurs being lucky people. There's a sportsman who used to say, I can't remember who it is exactly, who used to say, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And entrepreneurship is really about matching preparation and opportunity. And we're going to unpack a lot of that when we start talking about testing and validating your business idea. The other myth is that entrepreneurs love risk. Nothing could be further from the truth. Most entrepreneurs operate on shoestring budgets and without a lot of time. And so entrepreneurs actually take calculated risk. They manage their risk. They look at the market and they really assess what it is that is before them, what are the pitfalls, what are the advantages, and then proceed. And then also entrepreneurs are mercurial individualists. This is normally the hype that we get from the media in terms of the kind of people entrepreneurs are. And one of the entrepreneurs who's been given a bad rap is Steve Jobs. But if you actually read the proper biographies about a guy like Steve Jobs, he was never an individualist. He always had a team around him. If you look at Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, he didn't start that business on his own. He had people around him working on that business from day one. And quite a lot of those individuals are still with him today, as Facebook has become a billion-dollar organization. So those are the 6 myths around entrepreneurship that I would like to dispel. And I'm speaking particularly to those who are still in the ideating phase, where they think, I don't have what it takes. You could be the quietest guy in the room, and you could probably be one of the best entrepreneurs the world has ever seen. It's got nothing to do with your personality. It's got everything to do with your actual mindset. And leading on to that, if you look at the entrepreneurs who have made it in this world, most of them are actually self-made people. None of them were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. You look at Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. I mean, Oprah Winfrey was literally born into poverty. So the question becomes, how did these people manage to amass such wealth in such a short space of time? And the simple answer to that, is these people solve problems. It actually sounds silly when you think about it, but these people actually solve problems. And the amount of money they've made is a direct function of the size of the problem that they solved. So Jeff Bezos started Amazon. His vision was to use the internet to provide goods and services to people. And it happened to be $100 billion problem, which he's still solving today better than his competitors. So it's about solving problems. So if you're going to solve a problem, where do these brilliant ideas come from? And we'll talk about how you identify opportunity. So on the lookout for problems, ask yourself these 4 fundamental questions. What are people saying they don't like? What are people saying they wish existed? What are people saying frustrates them? What are people saying is incredibly inconvenient to them? And when you ask yourself these questions around whatever you're ideating, you will find that you start crystallizing on the opportunity before you. I often like to use the example of Uber. And if we think back to before Uber was there, and we talk about the general meter taxi, and we think about what people said they didn't like. They didn't like the condition of the car. They didn't like the fact that they didn't know who the driver was. Is he a criminal? Can he drive well? They had no form of reference of how this guy has performed over time. What were people saying wish existed? People wished that there were newer, better cars and a more convenient way of getting from point A to point B. And there were many frustrations, and meter taxis were incredibly inconvenient. And if you look at what Uber did, they went to all of these questions and tackled them one by one. And when you look at Uber today, it has become indispensable because you get into a taxi which is in great condition. You know how much it's going to cost you before you take the ride. You have the option of paying in cash or using your credit card. You can track your loved ones. You can let your loved ones track where you are. And so Uber has systematically demolished all the customer pains, and we'll discuss this when we discuss value proposition design. They basically alleviated all the pains that taxi customers had by providing painkillers in the form of how they structured their service. So come up with a solution. And as you come up with a solution, you've got to ask yourself these questions. Do potential customers actually realize they have the problem that I want to solve? And is this a problem that I actually have the capability and the capacity to solve? So is my skill set, my experience, and all of the things that I bring to the party, can I actually solve this problem? And then the magic question when it comes to commercialization is it actually a problem worth solving? Is it a big enough problem for me to model a business around? And if there was a solution, would people actually pay money for it? And would they actually buy it from me? What do I bring to the party that would make somebody buy this solution from me as opposed to someone else? And then also we must caution ourselves as we start thinking about what we want to do in terms of starting a business. So your potential solution must be capable of solving a problem of large enough magnitude. Is your business idea scalable, right? And also, is your solution unique enough to keep you in business, or can people copy it and put you out of business overnight if they just happen to have a bigger checkbook? So the question becomes, are your value proposition and your business model actually sustainable? Can you create a fortress around your business to protect it from competition and environmental forces? And then you also have to be very careful when you start a business that you're not starting something that is just a job disguised as a business. In other words, if you're going to be chained to your venture, all you've done is you've created another job for one. You actually haven't created a scalable venture that you can actually stop working in and working on. So at this point, that's really our introduction to entrepreneurship. We're going to be covering a whole lot more stuff as we go along. But I'm going to end here. And hopefully you guys will take this journey into the wilderness with myself and Kudzai and the entrepreneurs that are going to join us and share their experiences and their journeys with us throughout the series. So I'm going to end there and hand over to Kudzai to take us through the next part of our discussion.
All right, thank you, Dennis. I don't know if anyone has any questions that you might have for Dennis after that presentation and overview of what entrepreneurship is all about, and also what we're going to cover over the next couple of days. Dennis, I'm not sure if you had gone through some of the comments that people were making. Yeah,
I think you might have to moderate that for me, Kudzai, because as I was in presenter mode, I couldn't keep track of the comments.
So we've got comments like, I think there's a desire to, for example, see how do I turn my ideas into a business? How do I turn my side hustle into a thriving business? You spoke of social entrepreneurship. How do you then balance the desire for profit with social impact? How to think creatively and strategically to take a division into new heights. This is someone I think who's in a corporate already. And then Kathy has started her own specialist recruitment agency, and during COVID too. So just how to best apply herself to grow and stay the course, starting a business, such a difficult time as well. I'd like to learn how to turn my passion into a profitable business. That's Nontozo. How to identify a business idea and turn it into an actual profitable business. Just to know more about the workings involved in being an entrepreneur, in a corporate environment as well. Yeah, so I think lots of interesting perspectives from people and what they'd like to know. I don't know if you want to answer any of these, or it's stuff that we're going to be covering in our other sessions.
It's quite exciting in the sense that a lot of the stuff that people have asked is actually covered in the entire course. But maybe what I might do is maybe just touch on a couple of them, just to kind of give a taste and an overview of some of the stuff that we're going to discuss going forward. So I think let's kind of start from the beginning. So you have an idea and you're thinking of starting some kind of business that's going to produce a product or offer some kind of service. Now, the ideation process is actually the easy part, because you need to actually turn your idea into an innovation. And in the next section, we'll talk about what an innovation is. But to give a preview, an innovation is actually a great idea which is coupled to a viable business model. So your idea within itself will remain an idea until you can commercialize it. Now, we now talk about your business model, which is how you actually create, capture, and deliver value for your customers. But before you even go there, one of the critical things, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs will talk about issues around funding, but you actually need to test your idea on a very small scale. And we have a section in the workshops where we talk about testing your business idea. And the whole ethos behind that is that if you're going to approach somebody for funding, you've got to have proof of concept. You need to have taken your idea in a very small or even rudimentary format and actually present it to customers who actually pay for it. So that by the time you look for funding, you're actually saying to Mr. Funder that I had a hypothesis. So my hypothesis was that people are actually willing to pay for online maths lessons. And I tried it out with 15 people, and they actually paid me $50 for 10 lessons. And I did this consistently over the last 5 months. And I believe that if I get the resources, I can actually scale this business and maybe reach 1,000 students. Now, to somebody who is interested in either investing or funding your business, it starts to make sense because they know you've put skin in the game in terms of your time and your effort. Whereas our idea of entrepreneurship is that you come up with an idea, you do a 300-page business plan with projections and spreadsheets and things that show how you're going to set the world on fire. But you haven't even taken one match and lit anything. So that's more or less the journey that we're going to take, to say from an idea, how do we test that idea? And from testing that idea, how do we validate that it actually works? And then how do we then scale that into a sustainable forward? So I'm calling that I have answered a lot of the questions, but the devil is in the detail in terms of how do you actually do that in a practical sense. And that's what this workshop is all about. This workshop is not about theory. It's really about practice. We will discuss tools and methodologies, but these tools and methodologies have been used in some of the biggest organizations in the world, and they've achieved success through them. And I think we need to embrace some of those things and apply them to our context.
Okay, Dennis, maybe a specific question to something you covered from Veronica. She wanted to know what kind of a job can be a business in disguise.
Okay, so here's a typical example, and this might touch you on your studio a little bit, could I? So consultancy is one of those businesses where, as you put your business together, if you don't have the ability to scale, you will be chained to your business. So often what happens with professional services, so here I'm talking about accountants, I'm talking about lawyers, I'm talking about doctors, where in a lot of cases, you are the provider of the service. What that means is that should you be sick, no one is there to actually take over and move your business forward. Or you are limited to one geographical location, virtue of the fact that you sit. Now, a lot of people have broken that mold and are still in those professions. But what they've done is they've managed to literally replicate themselves in such a way that they can operate in multiple locations. They've developed a team, and this is one of the aspects we're going to discuss about just how important people are, because people help you scale your business and actually allow you to step away in your business to actually working on your business. Because when you work on your business, you're then able to grow it. I like to give the practical example of the guys who started McDonald's, the Kroc brothers. They started off with one restaurant serving meals, and they worked in that business and perfected their business model. And then they realized that there was so much demand for what they were doing that they needed to open in multiple locations. And for them to do that, they had to take their business and package it in such a way that they could franchise it. And you know, Africa, you don't drive in any direction, those arches and being pestered by your children that they want a Happy Meal. And that's how they scaled that business. So to answer the question, give an example of how you can actually, you've done is, okay, great. I see Veronica saying that she's been answered. Yeah, and I hope, Veronica, that you stick around, even though I've answered your question, you'll stick around to figure out how we do this.
Right. Okay. Any other questions that people might have for Dennis? Dennis, maybe any questions that you might have for me? I'm still struggling to answer if am I an entrepreneur or
Yeah, which is reasons why kind of I thought it might be a little bit personal to you as a consultant, but I think maybe as an entrepreneur, I mean, how long has it been you decide corporate world, and what motivated actually, because there's a significant opportunity for you to enter a space that nobody else is playing in. So what happened with you?
So with me, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what happened with me was I think I was in my dream job. If you had asked me earlier on, I was working for an accounting firm. I was doing my articles, but then I got to realize this was not what I really wanted. But during my audits, I began to audit non-profits. So I started auditing NGOs. And what then I realized was we didn't have the knowledge to really serve the sector. So you could see a need in the sector. And what was the problem then was NGOs were getting money with great ideas, but failing to account for that money, and then they would end up losing their funding. And all they really needed, I felt, was someone to just help them manage their resources. But as an external auditor, I really wasn't in a space to be able to do that. I didn't have the knowledge about the sector. I would come in with my corporate talk, and they wouldn't even understand what it was I was talking about. So there was that mismatch, and I that maybe the service we're providing was not adequate. So for me, that was the opportunity that I saw. But also it was for me, I think more like I saw a space I really wanted to work with because I'd always wondered how can I make a difference, and I thought I found a way to make a difference with my skills in accounting and audit, but helping out in the nonprofit sector that I wanted to work with so much. So that's how I ended up then going into the sector and consulting there.
Okay, thanks for that. Based in the market and positioned yourself to kind of place your value in your hustle has been in existence for existence, and you're obviously still managing to meet the basic needs of the market. But starting a business isn't easy, both from a financial perspective and from an emotional perspective. And having that support system that helps you really helps along the way. How well supported were you? Where did you get that support? And what ability to stay the course?
Okay. I think for me, what you said is really true. Support was really essential. And what I then realized was, I mean, there are different levels of support I would be expecting. But the support that was really key was, I think, from my inner circle, my closest circle. My friends or acquaintances, I think when I would mention the idea of this business, the response would either be, you're laughed at, or people would promise support to say, look, if you start it, you can come to our NGO and we'll help you. But that support didn't materialize when we then started the business. But I think if I take, for example, my family, so my brother Ranga, I think bought into it so much that he left his job to come and start the company with me. And for me, that was really strong support, because technically I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't have the networking skills at that stage to be able to get into the market. So we then, I think, had a really good combination in that I knew the technical aspect. Ranga had a really good network that he could then call upon. So it was really good in terms of, you start a business. So for example, for us, one of our first assignments was in Malawi, and the client said, pay your own way. And we didn't have money. I couldn't afford to pay for the flights or the accommodation, but we just said, okay, we'll do it. And I remember coming back to Turanga and saying to him, Shah, I need to be in Malawi next week. Where are we going to get the money? And I mean, he ran around, and in his networks, the amazing thing was, I was meant to fly out Friday, Saturday morning. He managed to get a loan from one of his business associates Friday evening. We didn't cancel the flight or anything, because we had this belief that I was going to go anyway. But for me, that was the sort of support that really I needed. And also, I think for me, from my sister, from yourself, Dennis, it was just tapping in to the networks and getting all the different inputs around marketing, around legal aspects. So it was really good. And I think the inner circle for me provided that support that then made us able to continue and sustain as a business as well.
Yeah, no, I remember those dark days. Say your experience has been, and what are key learnings in a team?
Hello, sorry, Dennis, I didn't hear that part. Can you come again?
I temporarily lost
yeah, sorry, my network is really bad today,
so,
Dennis. So yeah, maybe we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you get my last question? Did you get my previous question?
What was the question? Sorry.
Regarding teamwork, regarding assembling a team to help you drive your vision.
Okay, I'm glad to see. I saw Tariro is in, and I think Tari was like our first employee at KFM, if I'm not mistaken, 2004. It's good to see her on the call. And the challenge for me, I think, was to sell that vision that I was seeing, and I thought with the initial staff members we started with, because I think they could see where we're coming, basically starting with nothing, but they could tell what it was that we wanted to do. So the buy-in initially was really good. We're all sharing one desk, all 5 of us, with one computer type of thing. So I think we really knew what it was that we wanted to do, and I loved the buy-in. As we grew, it was, I mean, a little bit more difficult to then convince staff that were coming in, and as we got bigger, it became a little bit more challenging for me. At the moment, I think I'm able to articulate the vision even better than I did at the beginning, and so I think I'm able to sell the dream a lot better. So I'm finding with the current team that I have right now that people have really bought into it. You can tell, it's no longer just a job. I sometimes have to tell my guys that, look, you need to rest, stop sending me emails at 3 a.m. But I'm seeing that passion and that drive that you want in your team. The challenge for me has always been, I think, retaining staff over a long period. So you'll see after 5, 6 years, someone has really stayed in KFM, but they've grown to such an extent that maybe we end up being a little bit small for them, and they go out for bigger things out in the non-profit sector. But it's a challenge, but it's one I think that.
I mean, look, because I've seen your things that you must always on is that sometimes so that they actually offer them some kind of equity or profit share, and those are some of the aspects that we'll discuss when we talk about how do you scale your business. But my last question to you, Kudzai, this evening, I'm not seeing if you're still online, but I'll just pose the question and see if you hear me. Okay, great. If you had to live your life over again, would you still have taken the same path? And what would you have done differently in hindsight?
I think, you know, when I look back at it, there are areas that you think I could have done a little bit different. For example, I think maybe I would have wanted to, because I never got to then qualify. Um, I didn't do my CA-ship to the end or do a master's. Looking back, I would say maybe I should have done it earlier. But also, you know, at the moment or at that time, there'll be other priorities. So priority for me was growing the business. I had no time for school. So when I look back, maybe I think I might have been able to do it. But at that particular moment in time, I think it was like, you know, virtually impossible to be concentrating on growing the business and also doing school. So I wouldn't change much. I'd still go through the same path. When I look back and describe it, it's amazing how everything just seemed to fit in together. I knew what I wanted to do, help NGOs better manage their finances so they can help the communities they work in. But how it then worked out from an accounting firm to getting to work in the UN, to getting to work with big organizations, international organizations, and getting that experience that then enabled me to wanted to do was just amazing. It was almost like accidental things were just fitting together. But I think, yeah, I'm really trying to think of something I'll change. It most probably would be family time, because I think sometimes you end up so bogged down, you don't have time for family. So I think I would try and spend more time with family. I missed the birth of my children because I was out of the country on assignment. So, you know, those are some of the things possibly I would want to change.
Yeah, it is an arduous journey, and I'm sure you'll see from the graphic that there when we talk about the journey is that it's a lonely journey in a lot of ways, and be extremely rewarding. It may not be everybody, but entrepreneurship is definitely a profession that I think a lot of people should consider if you have burning problems. So I look forward to interacting with everyone over the next days. We're going to learn a lot, but we're going to keep it as practical as possible. I'll hand over back to you, Kudzai, to just conclude, because I think we're almost out of time.
Yes. All right. Now, thanks for that, Dennis. Yeah, it's exactly 7 o'clock. So I think thanks everyone for joining us. We're just hoping that we gave you a good overview of what it is that we want to do over the next, there are 4 more talks that we're going to have. And then we're going to have guests in them. So there's going to be a lot of stories you get to then also for joining us today. And our next session is on tomorrow. So we're looking forward to you joining us tomorrow at 6 o'clock as well for the next series of.
And have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Good night.